Hello, welcome to U.S. History 1302. This is U.S. History since 1877. Now, my name is Alfonso R. Lopez, and I will be your instructor for this class this summer term. So what we're going to be doing in this video presentation is to go over the syllabus. The syllabus, which has been already available on Blackboard for the past 10 days or so, really explains everything that you need to know about this class. And what we're going to be doing is going over that document and explain to you the requirements in terms of textbooks, for example. We're going to also talk about the method of instruction, the method of learning, how you're going to be learning the material for this course. We are also going to be talking about exams, what kind of exams are going to be, mainly the format and how you can prepare for those exams as well. We're going to be also looking at extra credit assignments and also the major assignment that is due at the end of the term. Towards the very end, there's going to be a report that you have to submit, and we're going to also discuss that. Towards the end, we're just going to look at grading and grading distribution, how I grade and the like, and also the tentative dates for the submission of the major exams and also that assignment that I just explained. All right, so let us turn our attention to Blackboard, because it is through Blackboard that we're going to proceed with this course. This is the main platform we're going to be using. And about 10 days ago, I built the course. If you have had the chance to visit the site prior to this day, you perhaps noticed that there's a series of links in the left-hand menu column, as you can see here. All of those are the most important links for this course. At the very top, for example, I'm going to click on the syllabus. Again, I place the syllabus at the very top due to the fact that this is really the most important document in terms of explaining everything that you need to know about this course. And it is so thorough that in many cases, when students ask me questions during the, for example, regular semester or the summer term, in many cases, that information is located in the syllabus. Of course, if you have any questions or doubts or concerns, please let me know and I will respond to you as soon as possible. But the syllabus, if we click on this link, is going to show you the entire syllabus. This is a syllabus page. You can read it as soon as you open the page, or you can download the file. I have included here a Word doc if you want to save it in your computer or print it, etc. Keep it handy. Again, it's available there as well. All right, so let's go over the syllabus, and let's start from the very top. Again, this is History 1302, Section 092. This is U.S. History since 1877. This is the second 5-week session of the summer that spans from July the 1st to August the 4th. My name is, once again, Alfonso R. Lopez. I will be your instructor for this class this summer term, and the fastest and easiest way to reach me is via email. Again, my email is located, as you can see here, alfonso.lopez@austincc.edu. I'm checking my email several times a day. So Monday through Friday, you'll be receiving a quick response from me within a 24-hour period. Okay. During the weekends, however, I might take 48 hours. So if you send it, let us just say Saturday, I might or might not respond within a 24-hour period, but for sure, you'll be receiving a response early Monday morning. Okay. So that's going to be pretty much the policy here. Okay. Now, this is an online asynchronous course, I will be talking more about that once we get into that section. But again, what that means is that this is a fully online class with no meetings whatsoever. Now, let me just remind you before we move forward that in terms of the communication, the email communication, according to ACC policy, all communication between faculty and students must take place within the ACC supplied systems, which means that if you send me an email from your private email account, I will not be responding to that. Okay, that's ACC policy. All right, so if you want a quick and prompt response from me, regarding, let's say, grading or an exam or an assignment, questions about that, again, please use your ACC email account. All right, now, in terms of the requirements, the textbook that is going to be required for this course is really not a conventional textbook in the sense that this is not the kind of textbook that you get traditionally in history courses where you read about, let's say, U.S. history from cover to cover. But rather, this is a text that presents a collection of historical documents. Okay, or it's called primary sources, historical documents that were produced by historical actors, very important historical actors that shaped U.S. history. I will talk more about this once we get into the section of the course assignment. But again, why you're going to need this textbook is to complete the report that is due at the end of the term. Okay, so this is why you're going to need this textbook. Make sure you're getting volume 2, because volume 2 is for History 1302, the second half of U.S. history. And also make sure you're getting the 4th edition as well. Because the documents that I've selected for you to read and answer questions from are selected from the 4th edition, and earlier editions do not contain those documents. They change from edition to edition. So this is a low cost, let us just say, financial investment in terms of textbooks for this class, because this textbook costs new about $25. You might get it used for $12 or even less. As far as I know, the ACC Highland campus bookstore is the one that actually carries this textbook. So I highly recommend that you obtain this textbook as soon as possible, because what I've known from experience is that the bookstore usually sends back unsold copies back to the vendor, let us just say at the midpoint of the term, assuming that students who did not buy the book initially in the very first days or the first week, they're not actually going to buy it from the bookstore. They're probably buying it somewhere else. So if you want to guarantee that you're going to get a hold of this book, I will suggest trying to buy this book as quickly as possible within the next, let us just say, 5 to 7 days max. Okay, that's my recommendation. All right, so that's in terms of the requirements, in terms of textbooks. Now, as I mentioned, this is an online course which is formatted in an asynchronous fashion, which means there will be no designated class meetings for real-time instruction. Okay, I know there are hybrid courses or that there are synchronous courses that are formatted that way, but here there is a lot of flexibility in that students can tailor their own schedule and review the material in their own time, considering that, of course, you might have other responsibilities and duties in terms of work and family and so on. So again, it's very flexible. But despite that fact, I also recommend that you set some time aside every day, if possible, or every other day, to review the material in order to avoid accumulating a lot of, let us just say, historical lectures, because as I will explain in just a few moments, the material that you're going to be learning in this class is going to be presented to you in a series of lectures that are already recorded. They're available on Blackboard, and you need some time to review those lectures and so on. Again, so yes, it's very flexible, but at the same time, it takes discipline, commitment to set some time aside within a weekly basis to review a certain amount of historical material. But other than that, again, you can tailor your schedule according to your work or family schedules and so on. All right. Now, in terms of the course description, in this second page of the syllabus, you'll see course description, and I provide a very synthesized summary of what we're going to be covering in this course. But let me give you a little more detail, let us just say, concerning what we're going to be covering. If you scroll down to this, I believe it will be the third page of the syllabus, you're going to see a kind of table of contents of sorts. As you can see, there are three main parts to History 1302, which is U.S. history since 1877. Those parts are addressing, let us just say, a time period of U.S. history that was transformative, let us just say. For example, the first part that we're going to be dealing with in U.S. history since 1877, I call it Building Modern America, and this is the latter part of the 19th century, from, let us just say, 1877, which is really the end of Reconstruction, all the way to 1900. Okay, so that's really the latter part of the 19th century. This is a time of great change and transformation in the United States. And in order to really assess U.S. history during this time period, I have presented to you three main topics or themes. So as you can see, the material that you're going to be learning in this class is organized around topics or themes. It's a thematic organization. So the first topic or theme that you're going to review in this class is called the idea of progress in the formation of modern America. So what that means is that in this topic, we're going to look at mainly a series of cultural ideas that were dominant, prevalent in American society during this time, in which, for the most part, Americans believed that the country and the world as a whole, perhaps even the universe, was on a journey, so to speak, to improve itself, to become better and better and better. That history was really moving, once again, not only the United States, but humanity and the universe at large into a higher order of being, so to speak. That there was progress taking place. Again, that this is really the spirit of the time during this era. The spirit of the time was progress. Americans believing in progress. And one of the reasons for that is because the country was undergoing rapid and radical reshaping and transformation. We're going to see, for example, the rise of a new science that was becoming the prevalent science of the times, called modern science. So we're going to look at the scientific revolution, the introduction of new scientific ideas, and also new technologies We see the advent of modern technologies like, for example, electricity, the telegraph, the telephone, railroads, for instance, chemistry, modern medicine, modern psychology. Again, so what we see is, again, a new system of knowledge that Americans believed were going to create a better world. Okay, science and technology. Also, there was another development taking place, and that was an economic system that was becoming entrenched in the United States. It's called capitalism. So capitalism was really becoming the national economic system of the United States at that time. And again, and that is a system in which people were allowed to create businesses and enterprises and industries of all sorts for the purpose of supplying the needs of society on one hand, but also trying to build and accumulate wealth. Again, what is called profit. So we have a profit-driven economy on the rise in which Americans are trying to succeed economically as well. So again, this is something that we're going to see in the first topic. And of course, the idea of evolution is also going to come in around the late 19th century to influence the way that Americans are going to see the changes that were taking place around them. You know, this massive industrialization, the rapid spread of businesses and enterprises, the rise of a middle class, for instance, and of course the transformations of modern science and technology that was happening in the country. All of those changes were interpreted to be really evolutionary changes, that we were evolving. In other words, that the law of evolution was at work. And so we're going to see the theory of evolution and how this is going to influence Americans in thinking that the changes that they were creating in terms of bringing capitalism and a massive industrial revolution, and along with modern science and technology, that those were actually just signs that we were on the right path of progress, that we were progressing and evolving as a society. Again, this is something we're going to get to see in the first topic. The second topic of the course is going to look more specifically at the way that American society changed during the late 19th century. Again, we're going to look at different regions in order to see how the rise of industry and capitalism, for example, is going to change the lives of Americans. So this is a more down-to-earth, more this worldly, so to speak, analysis about how the lives of millions of Americans are changing as they're going to be moving into cities. So we're going to see the rise of industrial cities. American farmers are migrating into those urban centers. We're going to see the growth of populations in the United States, not only as a result of those migrations, but also immigration as well. Mainly European immigration, again, in great numbers. We're going to see that the cities are growing precisely because of immigration. So we're going to get to see, again, how Americans lived inside of the city, how they adapted to the life of the city as well. We're also going to pay attention to the transformation of the West. Americans were also moving westward, trying to settle in the Western territories and transform those territories into new states, and how they brought also capitalism and industry into the so-called Wild West. They were domesticating and civilizing the Wild West. So we're going to get to see that again in the second topic as well. Okay. In the third topic, we're going to get to see the very last decade of the 19th century, where Americans began to move into the outside. They began to see opportunities abroad, see that there were new frontiers of opportunities where to invest and develop enterprises, businesses, and so on in order to accumulate wealth. In other words, but also to spread the American model, let it just say. Spread capitalism, for instance, and also the political ideas that Americans believed were important during that time, like freedom and democracy and the like. So again, this is a moment in U.S. history when Americans are moving out. American merchants, American entrepreneurs, including American missionaries that were trying to spread Christianity in different areas of the globe and so on. We're going to get to see that process again. So this is a time of great transformation. Again, where America is now acquiring a whole new makeup, so to speak, a new identity that is going to be more modern. Again, this is modern America. It's a new America. It's industrialized. It has a capitalist system. And is driven by the ideas of science and technology and the ideas of progress, that with capitalism and industry, science and technology, that we can actually transform the world. We can renew it, in other words. We can build a new civilization. That was, again, the spirit of the time. In part 2, we're going to look at the early part of the 20th century. Roughly speaking, I guess this is a time period in U.S. history that spanned, let us just say, from 1890 all the way to 1939. In this process, this period of time was very tumultuous, let us just say. There were a series of crises that were arising both here at home and also around the world. And those were the crises of modernity. Again, the crisis of modernity, the modern age, the modern nations of the world, like the United States, but also the European nations, that were also transforming themselves and becoming more and more industrialized, more capitalist driven, and so on. That modern world entered into a severe crisis. Okay, and we're going to address 3 more topics here that are going to address those crises. Okay, for example, within the United States, we're going to see a host of political movements and political activism, taking place that aimed at reforming the political and economic system of the United States to make it work for the vast numbers of people that felt that the system was leaving them out or was not really working for them. Again, I titled this topic Popular Reform Movements from 1890 to 1920. This is a time period when we see the formation of movements, political movements arising from below, from the masses. For example, we see an agrarian movement led by farmers. The American farmers are going to become very politicized and very organized, and they're going to launch a political movement called the agrarian movement that aimed at addressing the problems of the countryside of the American farmer that was affected, again, by rising prices, for example, by elevated railroad rates, affected also by high interest rates whenever they took up a loan in order to buy land or invested in machinery and the like. The American farmer, again, was really affected, again, by this growing industrial capitalist system, and they wanted to reform it. We also see the industrial working class, industrial workers, also organizing and forming their own movement called the labor movement. And they're going to launch, again, this nationwide movement in order to, once again, reform the political system in order to address the problem of workers, of long working hours and low wages, the lack of insurance and compensation and the like. We're going to see, again, the attempt by Americans to bring about change. And also the middle class. The middle class becomes also very active during this time, and they launch their own movement called the Progressive Movement, that aimed at solving not only the problems of the farmers and the workers, but also the problems of the middle class living in cities. So because, again, the cities needed a lot of attention as well in terms of public health agencies to solve the problem of epidemics, to solve the problems of corruption in business practices, and also the problem of alcoholism in the cities, and also to address the problems of monopolies as well. See the rise of large companies that were really monopolizing entire industries. And we're going to see, again, the attempt by the middle class to try to address that. The fifth topic is going to look at a world crisis, World War I. This is a crisis mainly produced by the leading modern nations of the world, particularly again, the European powers that had advanced into the modern era, the industrialized economies of Europe with their capitalist systems and so on, and their modern industrial armies are at war. And we're going to assess, again, the reasons behind this war, what led to the war, and eventually why the United States decided to step into the war as well by 1917. The sixth topic of this second time period is going to look at the Great Depression. This is the crisis that, although started in the United States, is going to affect the entire globe. It was really the crisis of capitalism. Capitalism as the system that emerged back in the 18th century, and that gradually by the 19th century becomes the standard economic system of the leading countries of the world, the leading industrialized countries of the world. This system crashed in 1929. Okay, capitalism again crashed in 1929, and it created severe disruptions in the economy, not only in the United States but also in a number of countries around the world. And we're going to see the attempt. Now, this is a U.S. history course, of course. The attempt by the United States to deal with that crisis and what kind of policies were enacted during the 1930s to try to help the United States get out of the Great Depression. Last but not least, the last historical era we're going to look at is a more contemporary era. I call it the U.S. in the age of globalization, from 1939 to the present. Here, we're going to see three topics that deal with the United States kind of entering the global stage, so to speak. Again, the world is becoming more and more globalized in terms of countries are now interacting more and more directly in the world stage than ever before. And some of those reasons had to do with, of course, modern technology, modern transportation systems, like steamships, for example. We got airplanes, we got now telegraphs, telephones, television, and so on, kind of integrating the world through a network of information systems and transportation systems. And of course, the world is becoming more and more integrated as well from an economic standpoint, in terms of there is more trade and so on and so forth. That's true. So the United States could no longer remain isolated as it had been in the past ever since the founding of the Republic. Now we're living in a different world. Again, it's a high-tech world, and nations are now participating and trading more directly than ever before, and that also causes conflict and competition. And so World War II, this is something that we're going to get to assess. The topic that we're going to assess in this third and final era was precisely that, again, in that we see a more globalized world, and the United States participated in this war precisely because almost no nation remained unaffected by this conflict. Just modern technology in terms of warfare had advanced just so much that it was very difficult for countries to remain totally isolated and aloof, again, from world events. The eighth topic, is going to address the Cold War. The Cold War, which spanned from roughly speaking, 1945 to 1991, was a world in which the planet becomes increasingly divided between two world superpowers. One was the United States, and the other one was the Soviet Union. And that was pretty much the outcome of the Second World War. The outcome of the Second World War is that it shattered the conventional and traditional superpowers of Europe. And what we see is that as those superpowers in Europe ended up destroying each other, at the end of the day, we're going to see two strong nations arising to the world stage with their largest armies and their strongest economies, if you will, trying to compete in the world stage for, let us just say, advocating and promoting their own values, their own ideas about how the world needed to organize itself. The United States promoted, capitalism, and the Soviet Union promoted communism. So again, we see this Cold War in terms of two world superpowers competing to spread and advance and promote their own system around the world. We're going to get to see that very closely. The ninth and final topic is going to look at the 1960s, perhaps the last reform movement in U.S. history occurred in the 1950s, called the Civil Rights Movement and also the Counterculture Revolution. This, again, period of time is going to be important because during this time, a generation of young people believed that it was essential to transform the United States into a true democracy. Okay, people that for some reason were disfranchised or marginalized, disempowered in terms of participating in the political system, like voting, for instance, or earning equal pay, and so on, that all of those obstacles to allow minorities, in other words, groups of people that have been pretty much left out from participating in the political system and also in the economic system, like women, for example, African Americans, Hispanics, and the like, we're going to see an organization again of different groups moving in a new direction and trying to institute an egalitarian society in which, again, there's going to be equality for all peoples in terms of equal opportunity. In this case, equal opportunity to vote and equal pay, equal opportunity to also participate in, let us just say, in the job market, advancing within the economy, or trying to get resources in terms of scholarships, or trying to receive a high quality of education and the like. Again, so there's going to be a new movement again towards a greater and greater equality, whether that was racial equality, gender equality, etc. Again, to try to transform the United States into a true democracy. Again, we're going to get to see that again in the last topic. Now, before we look at the exams, which is the obvious, of course, question that, okay, so what exams are going to be like? I will first, let me say that as I explained a moment ago, all of this material is going to be presented to you through a series of lectures that have been recorded already and uploaded on Blackboard. So if you're wondering where can I find those lectures, okay, if you can see here, there's a section called course content. One link, that top link, is called instructional materials. You click on that, and then you're going to see two folders. The upper folder is called recorded video lectures. So if you click on it, it will show you 9 folders, which are the 9 topics that I just explained to you. This is what we're going to be covering in this class. Okay. Now, you click on that folder. Let us just say we start with the idea of progress in the formation of modern America. You click on that, and you're going to see 3 video lectures. And they span, roughly speaking, for about an hour and 20 minutes, which is really the duration of a class. If you're taking a class, let's just say in person, in campus, again, it's about an hour and 20 minutes or so, give and take. There are 3 sessions. So this is, again, where you start. You start watching the videos, and it's really the virtual experience of a face-to-face class. Okay? You watch the video, you take notes as you would in a traditional class, and you're gonna also see an outline. I present an outline with key points and keywords and concepts, ideas, the names of the people that we're talking about, and so on. There will be maps, there will be pictures, and so on that you're gonna see in the outlines. And your responsibility is to be watching those videos on a timely fashion. Once again, don't leave everything towards the end, because it will just be too much, again, to watch if you leave everything at the very end. So try to set aside some time in order to watch this material, because otherwise it will be just too much. In all of the information that you're writing here is going to be critical for passing the exams, because the exams are based exclusively 100% on the lectures and nothing else. Again, so you need to worry about anything else other than the lecture. Okay, just the lecture. All right, so another thing, we're going to be talking about the exams in just a few moments, but passing this class and thriving in this class entails watching the lectures and taking notes, and of course using this material to answer the questions of the exams, which means that you don't need to worry about any other kinds of readings and catching up with chapters or reading articles, because the exams are going to be based on that. Nothing of that sort whatsoever. Okay, which means that, again, if you are very committed in taking this course and passing this course, the lectures, again, is really all you need to be reviewing each week of the summer term. Again, this is your main duty, your main responsibility, the lectures, in other words. Okay? Now, having said that, let us return to the instructional material section. I told you that there's another folder besides the recorded video lectures. There's going to be another folder called Lecture Outlines and Questions. You click on that, and you're also going to see 9 files or documents. And those are the outlines. Those are the outlines that I present to you during the lectures. So I'm sharing those outlines with you. Now, when you scroll all the way down, the very last page of that outline, you're going to see a series of questions there. If you're asking, well, what are those questions about? Those are the study questions. Those are the questions that will appear on the exam. Okay? Those are the exact questions that will appear on the exam. Okay? So, why am I doing this? So you at least know when you watch the videos, okay, so this is what the exam is going to ask. And you're going to notice right away that the questions that I'm actually writing there correspond exactly to what I lectured in that topic. Okay, section by section, I actually ask you a question about that. Okay, so those are not just vague questions or questions that might or might not deal with what I just discussed, but rather it deals exactly with what I discussed. Okay. All right. So let us return to the syllabus and talk about the exams, because now, again, this is the most obvious questions. Okay. So how the exams are going to be like. Now, let me just say that the exams are not going to be timed. I mean, they're not going to take place on a specific day and time, the way perhaps other instructors format those exams. The exams are going to be more like, let us just say, like a writing assignment, in that they're, again, you're going to have all the time in the world to do it. They have due dates, however, but this is something that you're constructing, you're building day by day by day. So by the due date, when the first exam comes around, all you need to do is just upload it on Blackboard, in other words. Okay, so it's a kind of like a take-home exam, in other words. Okay, and the way it's formatted is that each exam has two parts. Okay, let me just give you an example. If you can just go back to, let it just say the first exam right here. We click on that, and you're going to see that the first exam has two main parts. The first part, I call it the topic section. And in the topic section, I'm asking students to select one topic out of two. So just one topic. You don't need to do those two, but rather just one. It's either the second topic or the third topic. You select that topic and you answer each question as fully as possible. Okay, so the way you format this is by, stating, okay, this is part one, okay, the title, and you can write the name of the topic, for example. Let's just say, in search of new frontiers. You choose topic number 3. All right, topic number 3. And what you're doing here is follow a question and answer format. Okay, so write the question first and then below the answer. And try to answer each question as fully as possible. As fully as possible. Pretend that you're writing to an audience that has no clue what you're talking about. No clue about history, nothing whatsoever. Don't pretend that you're writing this information to the instructor, because that might lead to maybe leaving out a lot of information, not providing details because you mentioned something. So you assume that, that I know what you're talking about. But that's not the way, again, I grade. I grade based on how much you have learned, how much you have, let us just say, understood the material in terms of knowing the details, the analysis that I provided, and you have to, in your own words, again, state it, in the answer. So you don't need to write an essay like in English, like with a superstructure where you have this topic, paragraph, and then series of arguments, different paragraphs and arguments, and then conclusion. But rather just follow the question and answer, and you'll be in good shape. And once again, I really look at details. I like you to explain very fully, what we discussed in the lectures. So whenever, for example, let us just say you're looking at In Search of New Frontiers, let us just say, okay? And let us just say that you're addressing the first question. Identify and describe the meaning of the American frontier and explain the factors that led to the closing of the frontier. The American frontier was closed in 1890. So again, I talked about how Americans were moving westward ever since the first settlers arrived, let us just say, from Europe to establish Jamestown and New England and so on, how there was always this trend for the settlers to advance westward. What was their vision of the western lands and the western territories? How this process of moving westward is going to shape their character, their ideas about life, their ideas about being self-reliant and independent, and so on. Individualism, and so on. This ideas of Americans doing everything by themselves, for themselves, and so on, by moving to the frontier as pioneers and the like, and so on. So I want you to get into the details and try to break it down and elaborate, everything that I'm explaining, to be explaining your own words as fully as possible. Okay, don't just mention, but rather explain and describe, again, as much as you can to earn all the points as possible. Now, that's for 70 points. Now, part 2 is going to ask you to review the first topic, which means that everybody must review the first topic. There's no option. There's no option again. When it comes to part 1, I'm just letting you know that although you have 3 topics to review and there are 3 videos per topic, in reality, since part 1 asks you to just do one topic, you only have to review the video lectures of one topic, whichever you want. It's either topic number 2 or topic number 3. But topic number 1 is a must because that's 30 points of the grade of your exam. So if you decide not to do this for some reason, you leave it out thinking that, well, I'm just going to get a 70. Well, you're getting a 70 if your work is excellent, let it just say, for part 1. Okay? If you're earning an A plus in part 1, yeah, you get 70 points, but that's as far as you're going to go. Again, 70. So I will really reconsider that, because what you want is to, at the very very least, be in the B range, at the very, very least. Again, so what you want is to earn as many points as possible also in part 2. You want to increase your chances, again, of earning a B or an A in this class. So part 2 is called the key themes. Again, I have extracted 3 themes from the first topic of the semester, titled The Idea of Progress, and you must choose 2 out of those 3. And here, you're supposed to really not only identify, but explain and describe as fully as possible. So once again, this is not really a term to define, like a definition, in other words, but rather this is a theme that you must really elaborate. There's a lot to be said about, let us just say, the scientific and technological revolutions. Okay? A lot. The rise of this new science, how it displaced an old science based on religion. Now we have a new science based on a more materialistic approach. I talk about all those issues, the method of inquiry of this new science, the method of research based on observation and verification and so on. I really go over all of that. And also the new technologies. I talked about the railroads. I talked about electricity. I talked about telecommunications, telegraphs, telephones. I talked about chemistry, modern science, modern medicine, and so on. I talked about all of that. Again, so it has to be explained very fully. So you're not going to just do that by writing a small paragraph, because you're barely just describing, you're barely just identifying the term. You really need to fully explain. Okay? So this is the exam. So you have about, roughly speaking, 10 days to submit the first exam, and then another 10 days to submit the second, and then the last 10 days to submit the final. This is the way we're going to actually do that. Again, we cover 3 topics for the first part, then we have the first exam, cover the following 3 topics, and the second and the last 3 topics, the final. Okay? Now, before we move forward, it is very important that you understand that some of the problems I've had in the past with students that I wish for you to avoid at all costs is mainly, number 1, relying on or using any kind of outside source. Again, for this exam, you can only use lecture material. Again, so I'm giving you really 10 days for you to complete this writing assignment. It's not timed. You have all the time in the world, again, to do it. Okay, you type it on your computer. Again, you're using the information from the videos, etc., all of that. Okay, that's fine. But please avoid at all costs using any kind of outside source. Doesn't matter what the outside source is. Okay, doesn't matter what it is. So only lecture material is allowed. So if I start reading something I did not lecture, your work will be disqualified. Let me just put it that way. So please avoid that, because very often, again, what I see from semester to semester is that students, maybe because they procrastinated, maybe because they think that, this information is accurate. I gathered this information from a book or from an article, a website, and so on, that therefore it must be correct. It has to be given credit. But no, you're taking this class and you're receiving an analysis, a perspective of U.S. history that I have presented to you based upon books I read, research I've done over many, many years. Going back all the way to where, I started my academic career. Books and articles and documentaries, etc. So, it's a multiplicity of sources, again, that I have collected in order to give you this information. And the reason why I'm leaving out and prohibiting students from using any outside source is because, once again, we're living in a different age now, in which, when you're turning in an assignment, I really don't know where the information is really coming from or who actually did the work. Okay, it might be that today students now use the assistance of AI, for example, okay, in order to write papers or do research, and they just submit that work without having done anything, no work whatsoever, no reading whatsoever. Okay, artificial intelligence does everything for you now. So I don't know who I'm actually grading here. Okay, so the only way to know that you have taken this course, that you have reviewed this material, which is really not available online. Again, my lectures are composed from, once again, a multiplicity of sources, books, etc. that I read. So in order to make sure that you have taken this class, in other words, that's like class attendance. You have been in class, you have attended class, you have reviewed this material and so on, is by excluding any kind of outside source. So that's number one. The other critical issue is avoid transcribing my notes by using any kind of software. Some students, what they do is that they turn on a software which they use. Again, there are different kinds in which you can actually obtain this transcription. Somebody's actually speaking or lecturing, and you can have the entire transcription of that lecture, and they just turn it in. That's not going to work either, because students can just be even asleep while the software is doing the transcription. They have no idea what was said during the lecture. So again, I have to read your work. I have to read statements and paragraphs and sentences that were produced by you, in other words. So two things: refrain from using any outside source, and also using transcriptions. In other words, you have to do the work yourself. Okay, that's the only condition. All right, so let us go back to the syllabus, and now we're moving into extra credit assignments. Everybody's entitled to carry out extra credit assignments. If you're wondering, okay, so where are those extra credit assignments? Okay, they're located here. Course content. There's a link called course assignments. You're going to see the first, second, final exams. We're going to be talking about the report in just a few moments. But there's a folder that says extra credit assignments. You click on there, and you're going to see 3 folders, and each folder has the instructions and sometimes, again, there's an article there that you must read. Some of those extra credit assignments entail watching a documentary, so I'm providing the link for the website for you to watch the documentary. If not, there's going to be an article. Okay, so you read the article and answer some questions on the article, or you watch the documentary and answer some questions about the documentary, and you can add up to 10 points to each exam. Okay, so each exam you can add up to 10 points. Are those mandatory? They're not mandatory. They're optional. Only if you want to boost your grades, then you're doing those extra credit assignments. And anybody is entitled to do those assignments regardless of your grade standing and the like. Again, those are open to all at all times. You can do 1, 2, or 3, doesn't matter. Those are optional. Again, you're not required to do all 3. All right. And this is a wonderful opportunity to increase your grade. So again, your grades are not set in stone. There's, again, plenty of room for improvement. Now, there's, of course, a technical piece of information here. It says that you have until July the 29th to withdraw from this course. If for some reason you're totally unable to continue, that is out of your reach totally, then that's fine. But if for some reason you fell behind due to family matters, maybe a health emergency, etc., again, but you feel that you can actually finish this course, or maybe you require, maybe it's a minor extension, etc., maybe some form of arrangement in that regard, please talk to me. Okay, please send me an email, and you can explain your situation, and we can actually, again, arrange for an extension, etc., before you make the decision to withdraw. Okay, so just making you aware that I'm willing to work with you if you're willing to do the work. In this case, if you're willing to really finish this course and do all the work, that's fine. Okay, all right. Now, I mentioned that there's going to be a course assignment due at the end of the term, and that is the study questions report. This is where the textbook comes in, the textbook that I just explained. It's really a small text, about 190 pages. It's full of historical documents. What I've done is I've selected 10 of those documents for you to read, and they're very short read, about 3 or 4 pages each. They're written by very important historical figures that shaped U.S. history, and you're supposed to answer some questions about the content of those documents. Okay, the guidelines are all stated here. It tells you the chapter number, the page number, it tells you the title, and also it tells you the questions. Okay, so the format. Okay, you need a cover page. That doesn't count towards the body of the work. Okay, the cover page has your information, student ID, so on. Once you start the work, please, at the very top, write the title of the document. For example, right now, you start with Frank Mayer, The Buffalo Harvest. Okay, you write it, on the very top, and then follow a question and answer format. Write the question and then provide the answer, and then move to the second question, and so on, in that fashion. Ideally, you must produce about a page per document, not per question, but per document. So for the Buffalo Harvest, answering all the questions for that document must be 1 full page, double space. Then you move into the second document, which is Emma Brown, children's labor. You write the title on the very top and then proceed in the similar fashion, one by one. So at the end of the report, you're going to end up with about 10 pages, double space. Okay, you save it on Word or PDF, and you submit it on Blackboard. Again, this is the submit work section. This is where you're going to be submitting, again, the major assignments and exams for this class, first, second, final exams, and the report. And by the way, I forgot to mention that everything that you upload, please do so by saving your work either on Word or PDF format, because anything else Blackboard is not going to open. Again, it's not. It only opens Word documents or PDF documents, okay? So Google Pages or Pages and all the other kinds of software, for some reason, Blackboard is unable to open that. Okay. So this is the grading distribution. 25% each main exam and assignment. First, second, final exams, 25% each. The report is 25% each. Again. Now, if you consider also doing the extra credit assignments, that's another factor that comes into play for the final grade. So there's plenty of room for improvement. But also, I want to let you know that I also take into account effort and progress. So when I'm grading, again, at the very end of the term, I'm actually calculating grades, and I see that students were moving from, let's say you made a 75 on the first exam, then an 84 on the second, then a 91 or 92 in the final. You submitted one extra credit assignment, but despite all of that, you ended up with an 89 grade average. Okay, so for me, that's a lot of effort and progress you've made. You've made progress across the term, and you also submitted an extra credit assignment. That's effort, and that has to be also compensated. So I'll give you the A. Only, again, if your grades are improving, and if you showed also, effort as well across the term. At the end, you got some important calendar dates in terms of, the first day of class. You got, the 4th of July, which is a holiday, the last day to drop a class or withdraw, July 29th, and August the 2nd, which is the final exam. Again, that is going to be pretty much how we're going to proceed. And again, the last page is going to show you a breakdown day by day of the video lectures that you're supposed to be watching, and then it tells you when the exams have to be submitted. The first exam has to be submitted July the 10th. The second exam has to be submitted July the 22nd. And the final exam, August the 2nd. Okay? So again, that is really the tentative course schedule. All right, so this is really what I needed to explain to you. I hope you found this presentation useful. I really covered everything that you need to know about this course, where to identify the major links, where the instruction is located, the videos, and where you're supposed to submit the work, and so on and so forth. If you have any questions, please let me know. Send me an email and I will respond, as soon as possible. Once again, my name is Alfonso R. Lopez. I'll be your instructor for this history class this summer term. And I hope you learn new information and you're going to be inspired, if you will, by the themes and the topics and the analysis that I have presented in the video lectures. Okay? This is all I have for you. I'll see you then in the next announcement. Thank you.